Hello and welcome to today's session. This is on Type 2 GP forms. My name is Angie McPhee and I'm a Stakeholder Engagement Manager at NHS Pensions. So on this session, we're going to have a look at the following. We'll have a quick introduction on how GP pensions work, an overview on the certificate and the annualization calculator, and then we'll look at where you can find the forms and how you submit those forms to PCSE. So starting off, just a quick overview. NHS England are classed as the employers for practitioners. However, they do contract that work out to Primary Care Support England, PCSE, and they deal with all aspects of practitioner pensions. PCSE are part of the Capita group and they won the contract to provide all GP services on behalf of NHS England, which includes all the pension aspects, including locum and solo forms. As practitioners are employed by NHS England, all administration is carried out by PCSE on their behalf and not by any individual practices. And NHS Pensions are the central administrators for the NHS pension scheme. So we'll just have a look now at some of the differences in the terminology that you might hear being used and what we use at NHS Pensions. This slide just explains what type of GP may be referred to by NHS Pensions. So your type 1 medical practitioner or a provider is a partner, single-hander or shareholder GP. A type 2 medical practitioner or GP performer is a salaried GP, a long-term fee-based GP, or an assistant or portfolio GP. A locum practitioner is your freelance GP locums. And just to mention there, a long-term fee-based GP who works at the same surgery continually can choose to be regarded as a type 2 practitioner if they wish to do so. And a non-GP provider is a non-GP partner or shareholder. GP registrars or trainee GPs are not classed as practitioners. They are afforded officer status. So again, some background. Practitioners are usually self-employed. They are not classed as full or part-time for pension purposes. So if a practitioner works 80 hours a week, they must pension all of that work. They cannot pick and choose which GP employments they pension. It is an all or nothing approach. Unless opted out, a GP must pension all type 1 and type 2 practitioner work, including any out-of-hours work. Locum work can additionally be pensioned if the locum forms are completed within 10 weeks of undertaking the work. Work pensions on an officer basis must not be included in the year-end forms. That work will be provided directly to NHS Pensions via the relevant organisation. Also, any work which was not pensioned, any locum work for which forms or contributions were not submitted, should be omitted from the forms. The GP's pension contributions are based on the entries submitted by the practice on the estimate of pension profits form, and the contribution tier rate should be based on each GP's global income. If the estimate of pensionable profits is not submitted by the deadline, the maximum contribution tier will be deducted from each GP listed at the practice. PCSE can use this information provided to collect the contributions from the practice at the correct rate and submit them to NHS Pensions. So type 1 practitioners can be involved in several primary care NHS contracts, so they may be a partner in several different surgeries. If a GP has responsibility at more than one surgery and they're named on each surgery's contract, they must complete an estimate of earnings form for each surgery, and the contribution rate must be worked out based on their total GP income from all sources. Practitioners must declare all pensionable income, so that's the practice work plus any ad hoc, on an annual certificate of pensionable profits, and that must be submitted to PCSE within 11 months of year end. Any other work that is undertaken during the year, including the estimate of earnings from a different practice, should be completed on each of the forms. And work where any pension salary GP work may have been undertaken in the same scheme year, a type 2 form also needs to be completed. So at type 2 practitioners, although a salaried GP is employed by a practice, their employing authority for NHS pension scheme purposes is PCSE NHS England. A salaried GP's pensionable income is their practice salary, including any overtime, plus any ad hoc income net of expenses. The practice must list them on the estimate form prior to the start of the year, and the GP must complete the self-assessment form at year end. Both of those forms can be found on the NHS Pensions website. Where a GP elects to work for a practice on a long-term self-employed basis, but they are not locum, they are treated the same as though they're a salaried GP in pension scheme purposes. Their pensionable income is their salary income plus any ad hoc income net of expenses. It's worth mentioning that salaried GPs who are formally employed by a practice are subject to auto-enrolment. As automatic enrolment has a 3-year cycle, the practice must enrol a salary GP back into the NHS pension scheme 3 years after the initial staging date, and then every 3-year interval thereafter by liaising with PCSE. The salary GP must complete another SD 502 opt-out form if they wish to remain opted out of the scheme at the point that auto-enrolment takes place. And any locum who has continually worked at a practice and is classed as a Type 2 must complete this form, but they're not subject to auto-enrolment. So if you had any medical practitioner NHS pension scheme membership in the year from the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of March 2023, you must, under statutory legislation, complete the relevant forms. You are legally required to pay the same rate of tiered contributions in respect of all of your GP pensionable posts, and you must proactively liaise with all of the relevant NHS organisations you work for to ensure you pay contributions at the correct rate. Failure to comply with the NHS pension scheme regulations may result in your pensionable pay being provisionally set to 0 for that relevant period. All of the relevant forms and guidance for GP pensions can be found on the website under the Member Hub. It is important to ensure that the practice submits that estimate of pensionable profits each year on time to ensure that the correct tier rate is deducted for each GP. If that form isn't completed and submitted to them by the deadline, they may take the maximum amount contribution rate from each GP until they get that information from you. So the difference between the form from previous years and why that is important. So during 2022-23, the tier rates for NHS pension employee contributions changed mid-year from the 1st of October 2022, and that created the requirement to apportion pensionable earnings between 2 separate periods. First period is from the 1st of April 2022 to the 30th of September 2022, and then from the 1st of October 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. Due to this change, the tiered employee contribution rates for each period are shown as separate boxes and tabs on this year's forms. Full information regarding that change can be found on the member section of our website. The NHS pension regulations state that the periods for this year must be annualised separately. So where a GP is a member of the 2015 scheme during 2022-2023, and they have had no breaks in service, their tiered rate is based upon their total NHS GP income. Where a GP provider is a member of the 2015 scheme and there's been a break at some point, annualisation of the 2015 scheme GP income may need to occur. We have at NHS Pensions produced guidance and an annualisation calculator to assist members in determining the correct tier rate for 2022-2023. So as we said, it's split into 2 periods and they do need to be annualised separately. So the first period from the 1st of April 2022 to the 30th of September 2022 is 183 days. And from the 1st of October 2022 to the 31st of March 2023, it's 182 days. It is important that these forms are completed correctly to make sure that the correct pension contributions have been taken and that GP pension records and benefits are correct. This is important to complete as we want to ensure that when you come to retire, all of the information is correct and updated with NHS pensions. So on the form this year, for that year, there will be 2 tabs. So you'll need to complete one tab for the 1st of April 2022 to the 30th of September 22, and then again, another tab on the certificate from the 1st of October 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. So looking at the Type 2 certificate, that Type 2 certificate must be completed by salaried GPs employed at a GP practice or an alternative provider of medical service, an APMS contractor, local health board or primary care network or other organisations providing PCN subcontracted services. Any long-term fee-based self-employed GP who works for a practice, APMS contractor or local health board. And any GPs who work solely on a self-employed basis for an out-of-hours provider that has access to the NHS pension scheme, or on a self-employed basis for an NHS trust or foundation trust that provides out-of-hours services. So there is guidance on our website alongside that Type 2 certificate, and you can find that under the member hub of our website, as shown on the screen. The main difference, as I said, between this year's and previous year's certificate is that split period. So again, just to emphasise, there are 2 tabs on the certificate, one for each period. So annualisation. From the 1st of April 2022, as all members are in the 2015 scheme, the tiered employee contribution rate for a medical practitioner is based on their global and annualised income. For example, a GP practice plus self-employed out of hours plus self-employed ICB work. All breaks in pensionable service in the year 22-23 must be accounted for irrespective of the type of GP or length of the break. The GP is not regarded as being in continuous pensionable service during a break. And to assist GPs, NHS Pensions have developed a 2022-23 annualisation calculator in which the GP enters details of their GP work and income to determine the correct tiered employee contributions rate. And I do have a couple of examples of that to show you. So, the NHS pension regulations were modified from the 1st of April 2023 in respect of annualisation during the scheme year for 2022-2023 to account for that mid-year tiered employee contribution rate change. They specify how annualised pay is calculated under 2 different methods depending on the type of membership. So for Type 1 GPs, as pensionable earnings are determined by practice profits and therefore do not apply to a specific date of work, total pensionable pay is apportioned between the 2 relevant periods based on the number of pensionable days. The annualised pay is then calculated for each relevant period based on the apportioned pensionable pay and pensionable pay in each period. So where a member only has a Type 1 post during 22-23, the annualised pay for each relevant period will be the same amount. For Type 2 GPs and locum GPs, as the actual pensionable pay for each period of work is known, the annualised pay is based on the actual pensionable pay earned and the number of pensionable days in each relevant period. So this method of annualising for 22-23 is different to the examples previously shown in the guidance for solo and locum that is on our website, which were based on the understanding that following the mid-year tiered employee contribution rate with effect from the 1st of October, the tier rates would be determined by annualising the pensionable pay for the whole scheme year for all types of practitioner posts. This may result in more contribution adjustments than previous years following the submission of those 22-23 annual certificates. So we have updated the annualisation calculator for 22-23 to help you calculate the annualised pay for each relevant period and determine the correct tiered employee contribution rate for each relevant period too. So when using that annualisation calculator, it is important to enter the type of GP work undertaken. The calculator recognises 3 different types of work, which each contributes to the total GP income used to set the tiered employee contribution rate. So those 3 different types are your Type 1, your Type 2 and your locum. So you would enter the dates and income for each period worked as a Type 2 GP. So for example, the Type 2 GP who worked from the 1st of July 2022 to the 28th of February 2023 should enter the pensionable profit figure for the 2 periods of work, and the calculator will apportion the profits between the 2 periods. So the calculator inputs would be from the 1st of July 22 to the 30th of September 22. Actual pensionable pay would be £15,000. And from the 1st of October 2022 to the 28th of February 23, the actual pensionable pay was £32,500. So if we have a look on this next screen, you can see that example there showing on the screen as it looks within the calculator. So you would take this here and there's a drop down to put the relevant type in. So this is a Type 2 with the dates and the pensionable pay for each period. If you want to add different lines, you just click on the add row. But when you've finished adding all those periods of employment, you click calculate and you can see there it's annualised the pay to £59,510.87 for the period between April and September, and £78,559 for the period between October and March, and it set the relevant contribution rates accordingly, 12.5% for the first period and 13.5% for the second period. Next example shows where it's a type 2 and a locum. So in this period, you have your type 2 in the top line there. You can see the start and the end date and the pensionable pay for that period. But then each individual period of locum work would have to be added separately along with the pensionable pay to make sure that it's apportioned correctly and annualised. So again, once you hit calculate, it will apportion the pay between those two periods and set the contribution rate at the right tier as well. So you can see in that example, it's calculated the annualised pay as £98,777 with a contribution rate of 13.5%. And from October to March, it's £100,076 and the contribution rate is 13.5% again. It does have the contribution tier rates underneath as well for you to refer to. Where a type 1 or type 2 GP also performs solo work, so any self-employed out of hours or appraisal work, in addition to their ongoing main type 1 or type 2 posts, it must not be entered into the calculator as a separate post. That's because the solo income is not annualised separately, even if the solo work is irregular, providing that the GP also has an ongoing type 1 or type 2 post. Instead, the solo income is added to the type 1 or type 2 income before annualising occurs. This means that if the GP did not work a full 365 days in the year, the solo income will form part of the annualised income. Where a GP only performs solo work and does not have any ongoing type 1 or type 2 practitioner post, their pensionable membership is determined by their contract for service arrangement. As I said, all of the information and guidance that is available for you is on our website under the Member Hub, information for practitioners and non-GP providers. Due to the complexities of the calculation of the correct split of pensionable pay and tier rates as a result of that mid-year tier rate change on the 1st of October 2022, the deadline for the certificates to be submitted to PCSE has been extended from the 28th of February to the 31st of March. If possible, you should submit those forms via PCSE online portal or via the Contact Us page of the PCSE website. They need to be sent directly to them. They don't come to NHS Pensions. They have to go through PCSE for them to update the record and make the necessary arrangements for pension contributions to be taken. Once they process that, as I said, they pass all that information on to NHS Pensions and your records are updated. So again, it is very important that the forms are completed accurately and submitted in a timely manner to ensure that those correct pension contributions have been taken. That ensures that GP pensions record and any benefit estimates are correct when you are asking us for them.